from booze to booze here. It's not so boozy in this room. But I'm going to read some boozy poems anyway. And, well, okay. I'll stop that there. So my family is here tonight. I'm from Portland. And they're waving at you. And they're so sweet. And this first poem is about family, but it's not about them. It's about more like chosen family, which is something you get when you're a poet or an artist or a queer or all of those things, ideally. How many people are familiar with the concept of gay bears? Just a little hoot. Mm-hmm. If you're not, then here's a little bit of education for us all. My other shirt is chest hair. This is not true. I'm actually not even wearing a shirt. This is true. If I were a gay bear, which I am not, and if I were wearing a shirt, which I am not, the shirt might read, my other shirt is chest hair, and this would most likely be true. Allow me to explain. I dreamt last night of a bear who spooned me in the corner of my writing room on the doggy bed reserved for a dog I haven't met yet. In the dream, I curled onto my right side, and I felt this giant creature and his heavy breath and his matted hair. I felt the furnace of him against the spine of my writer's block, and I knew that even if winter came, right now, that I would be warm and that I would have something alive to write about. Sometimes we dream so hard we forget what's true. Once I got drunk and peed in the parking lot behind the Bear Bar on the corner of 15th and Madison, even though I was only a few blocks from home. It was after hours for the bears and the cubs and wolves and leather daddies, so I marked my corner of their corner of the forest, and some part of me wondered if they'd know by the unfamiliar smell of my puddle that I'd been there, and some animal part of me hoped that they would. Most nights now I sleep next to a lover who is smooth, petite, and perfectly breasted. She is more girl than bear. This is true. But between the tender ages of 25 and 29, I lived in a studio apartment perched between pine trees and city. I was never lonely when I lived alone. This is not true. But every day I did not go in but did not look away as dozens of bears and boys leaned over the deck to flirt, to smoke, to growl at each other. These were looming, bearded, homo-masculine mammals spilling over and out of their den. I believe Goldilocks knew exactly what she was getting herself into. It's cold out here for a girl on her own. And to tell you the truth, those bears were beautiful. Speaking of true, the dive bar on the corner of 15th and Madison is no longer. We have gentrified ourselves right out of the neighborhood. Now condominiums are stacked on top of poets, and cigarette butts are swept under bamboo decks, and the paw prints still stuck in the mud are called public art installations. Said Goldilocks to Papa Bear, I am full of shivers and can no longer pay my rent. Do you mind if I call you Daddy? One who didn't know better might believe that the slick reflections of hipster hairdos in the darkened windows of the brand new restaurant on the corner of 15th and Madison had always shimmered just this way, just right since the beginning of time. This is not true. This is how we forget where we come from. But you know, and I know the story of the men with teeth and claws who could rip those skinny jeans to shreds. We know the bears with bellies, the boys with bears, the flannel and the leather, the boots, the belts. Here's where they found each other. Here's where they burned rough rashes into necks with the brash of their happy hour shadows above their well-worn tank tops and tees, reading, my other shirt is chest hair. Once I dated a woman who had never loved a man, but she masturbated exclusively to gay male porn. This is not my story. I love these animals differently, not sexual, but still somehow homo, like happy. Allow me to explain. I woke up last night from the warmest dream, said me to my hairy apparition. We've been wandering through the same woods all these years. Now they've cut down our trees. Do you mind if we stick together? 'Cause if I were a gay bear, which I am not, I would want you like we both want that pot of honey. So instead, Papa Bear, grisly fag, meanest of all apparitions, said the poet in curls, do you mind if we stick together? 'Cause when you crawled into the window of my writing room, 8 feet tall with that strong jaw and all that heat in your eyes, from deep in my loneliest dream I knew I must be your long-lost daughter. This is true. Is the sound still all funny? No, it's all right. Continuing on the booze theme, I wrote this poem thinking about a bar in Seattle where it used to be called 22 Doors. Now they've removed some of the doors and it's called 22. But the bar and some of the tables used to be made out of these beautiful, now it does seem funny, out of these beautiful doors from an old hotel. And so that's the setting. This is also the only sonnet I've ever published. Torched Sonnet. Jealousy, that old peculiar ghost, leans bones against the bar, mahogany, an obtuse door from the old hotel. She sings her torch song, loosens robe, tears negligee. She moans a dirty moan, thick, filthy bathtub ring. Her collarbone circles the room, sways brooms and mops in ill-fit shoes. We hiccup one more round, she ropes. You monsters, say please. Spools ribbons from our roughed up lips, then gestures with her nose a sharpened spoon. We're cut. All praying muddy drinks, palms ripped. She mounts the grand piano, we plead, croon another nightmare, mother mean. She leers. He wants her more than you. Marry your fears. Someone, after I wrote that poem and shared it with people in a workshop group, someone suggested I write a series of Mother Mean poems, and I think I was too scared of her to do that. This poem is not boozy. That's all the introduction it really needs. No, actually, it's not. So, anybody a fan of Nicholas Copernicus? You know about that guy? So Nick Copernicus was one of the key thinkers who put forward the idea, pre-Galileo, that the Earth does not just stand still while everything else rotates around it, that the Earth, in fact, has its own rotation. And that was so radical when he came up with that first of all, he didn't publish his manuscript about it till the end of his life. And second, the word revolution, which showed up in his work as a science term, shortly thereafter started being attached to the idea of cultural revolution, because this was, really rocking everyone's world, literally. Okay. Dear Copernicus, I can't get you off of my mind. The world wasn't ready for what you had to say until they were, and then you were gone, but that's not the part of the transcript I want you to read back to me. Dear Copernicus, it's this issue of believing. Can't I make myself believe or not believe? How, for example, and at what precise moment did you come to believe in the belief that you believed the whole world should start believing? Dear Copernicus, the church was against you. I'm curious if that's why you turned to gardening. I mean to promiscuity, or to sock puppets and Pilates. I wonder if it's why you got that tattoo of your face removed from your left shoulder. Dear Copernicus, forgive me, I was confusing your biography for mine. I'm sure that happens all the time. Dear Copernicus, I suppose you'd like some context. In therapy today, I inquired about belief removal, kind of like eternal sunshine of the spotless whatever. Like tattoo removal, I was thinking, or for a more organic metaphor, like removing not only the flower, but also the bulb, but not only the bulb, but also the stringy bits of roots, and maybe even the bugs who fed on the roots. So I went to the therapist and asked how to remove this entire ecosystem from my garden. No big deal. I just wanted to know from this doctor of sorts what kind of surgery or spell or shovel I needed to remove beliefs that no longer served me. My therapist laughed at me. Dear Copernicus, did your therapist laugh at you too? Dear Copernicus, after my therapist laughed at me, she said, "You're not going to like this." And I said, "I am not afraid to cry in here." Do you remember that one time when I cried in here? I said, and she said, "To remove a belief system, you have to go back to where the belief was planted." I said, "I'm game." She said, "Okay, go home to your parents. Ask them how to spell their real names." She said, "Easy as that." I told her I didn't believe her. Dear Copernicus, today I went to hot yoga for the first time in 10 years. I did this because I broke up with my therapist. Dear Copernicus, have you ever tried hot yoga? I almost died in there, and I thought of you, how you died just after you finally published. I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't stop thinking about all the ways we're doomed, and the room turned upside down, but the teacher called out for me to stay. He said, "I know it's challenging. You can take a moment, lie down in resting pose. If you just stay in the room, the work will do itself." The work does not just do itself, Copernicus. Dear Copernicus, tell me the story of what you did to see the universe differently. Did you stand on your head so long you saw stars? Literally saw them, saw the round gaseous edges of things? Did you hold a pose until you fell, and did you forget yourself? Did you finally forget yourself as you fell all the way through the dark around the sun, a full rotation to understand the earth on her axis? Did you spin and spin and spin? Or did you take a train to your hometown, knock on the door, and ask kindly to be let in? Dear Copernicus, my parents' names, it turns out, spell out Forgiveness. Dear Copernicus, it was as easy as that. I am spinning. Thanks. I'm going to read just a tiny little poem to end. For my sister. Welcome back. Take off your gown of gone. Wayward girls will not be punished here. What is naked and glad again is not a shame. Believe it or not, there is no need to keep a dark garment once it has lost its shine. You can look over your shoulder, sure, but go on. Put on a new record. That whistle you hear is not the kettle, it is your own long letting out of breath. Welcome home to skin that wants you. Welcome to your own lit room, perfect for the party.